101.
Correct.
This is Daf Yomi 101.
So we said that if somebody made Kiddush in Shul, according to Rav, Yotzei Kiddush, but not Yayin. Shmuel Amar says, Afidei Kiddush lo Yotzei, you're not Yotzei Kiddush either. Because Shmuel is going to hold in Kiddush al b'makom Suda. Because it says, V'karas l'Shabbos oneg, b'makom sha'ata kor l'Shabbos, which is Kriya b'Kedusha sham tehei oneg. That's where the oneg should be. Since in Shul there's no Suda, there's no Kiddush either. So according to Rav, who said that you can be Yotzei Kiddush in the Shul, Lama Leila Kedusha Bevesei. And why does he have to repeat it in home? Kidei Lahotzi Bonav of Neveso. Because he has to be Motzi is the family. Now, Ushmuel, who held Ein Kiddush al Makam Suda, Lama Leila Kedusha Beknishta. Why should there be Kiddush made in Shul? In the time of Chazal, guests would actually eat in the Beis Knesset and sleep there. And therefore, their Kiddush is a fine Kiddush for them. The Ochlu, V'shasu, V'ganu, they ate, they drank, V'ganu, and slept b'Bei Knishta. V'oz the Shmuel Tamei, the Omar Shmuel and Kiddush el b'makom Suda. Kiddush has to be made where you eat. Swarmine. Hanimili b'ayis l'bayis. That's if, for example, if you went from one house to another house, you'd have to make another Kiddush. If you're going to eat again. But if you go from, let's say, your dining room to the attic in the same house, then you would not have to make another Kiddush. We were with Shmuel. He went from the attic to the ground. The Hodar Mekadesh was Mekadesh again. So you see, it's not corrected. Even in the same bias, you got to do it again. Ravuna Savar Ein Kiddush al Makom Suda. Ravuna had the same din like Shmuel, that the Kiddush has to be done where you eat. The Ravuna Kaddish, Ravuna made Kiddush. The Sakrale Shorgan, his candle burnt out. So he couldn't eat there anymore. His son was having a wedding and they had built a house for him. And there was a candle there. So he moved over there and made Kiddush again. But I mean, they ate something there. Rab also held the same din. When we were by Rava, when we were by Rabba, he would always tell us when we made Kiddush, taste something. Before you end up at your inn, the candle will burn out. You won't be able to eat there. And you won't be able to say Kiddush in the place where you're eating. So here, where you make Kiddush, you should taste something. So the halacha in the Shulchan Aruch Or Chaim, Reish Samich Tes, that there's a minhag to be mekadesh in shul because of the orchim. Even in our day, where there's no orchim, we're not mevatel the minhag. So the concept of making kiddush in shul is based on a minhag. But nobody should taste anything there. You give it to a cotton, eliyatim min hakos lekotton. And Eretz Yisrael, they don't make kiddush in shul at all. And then ein kiddush al makom suda. You have to make kiddush where you eat. Ein kiddush, v'im kiddush lo sarach. If you make kiddush, you didn't eat. Lo yatsa fidei chavetz kiddush. You weren't yotza kiddush. We passed like Shmuel. And in Yotzei Chovas Kiddush Elam Ken Oichel Sham. You're not Yotzei Kiddush, like you eat something there. Kosva Go'onim, Shim Shol, if you drink a Revius Yayin. Oh, Ochel Dover Muet Shechayv Alav Bracha Achrona, you eat a piece of cake, where you'd have to make an ala michya. Yotzei de Chovas Kiddush B'Mokum Suda. So if you drink a let's say you're in shul and you make kiddush and you drink wine, the revius yain, then you were yotzei kiddush b'makom suda. Or even having anything that you make a bracha achroina on, for example, nala michya.
You mean when you go home, then you don't have to make Kiddush again?
Technically, you wouldn't, but again, because of your family, if they're not with you in shul, you would make it for them. Right? Technically, and really, you want to make, since you're in a new place and you're having suda there, you'd make a kiddush again.
You should make a Kiddush again. Yeah.
Make kiddush again because you have to. Ain't suda below kiddush, ain't kiddush below suda.
Yeah. But if you make Kiddush at home in the morning, you make on a small thing, and then later for lunch you don't have to make Kiddush again because you made Kiddush. That should carry on for lunch also.
Usually in the morning you don't make kiddush.
No, if I come back from shul, at 9:30 and I make Kiddush and I eat something. So then at lunchtime I don't make Kiddush again.
You don't have to.
Okay, I'm saying.
Because you're in the same bias. We're going to
In the same bias, even in the
bias.
same room. Yeah.
Or multiple rooms in the same house. That means that was a bias telling them that you should eat something when you make kiddush, because you won't be yotzei kiddush if you're not going to have a suda there. Whereas Zaini, it's not so. V'amar Abaya, kol mili demar of avid kirab. Rabbah would always follow his Rebbe Rav. Lebar mehani tlasta avid kishmuel, except for 3 halachas like he did like Shmuel. So how can you tell me that Rabbah also paskin ein kiddush al like Shmuel? He paskin like Rav except for 3 things, and one of the 3 things is not this din. What were the 3 things that he paskin like Shmuel? Matirin mi beged lebeged. You could remove tzitzis from one garment and put them on another garment. That's the halacha. Umadlikin mi ner lener. For Ner Chanukah, they could be madlik from one candle to another. Now we don't paskin like that. The Ner Chanukah noagu lahachmir v'lo lahadlikaf mi ner lener shel mitzvah during the time of the Shas mitzvah. Halacha Rav Shimon b'Greira, that he paskin like Shmuel, that we paskin like Rav Shimon b'Dover Shem Miskave, the time of Rav Shimon Oimer, Goyrer Oda Mita Kisi v'Safsel b'Shabbos. Let's say you drag a bench on Shabbos on a dirt floor from one corner to another corner. Your kavana is to move it from one place to another, not to make a ditch, right? So how can you tell me that Rabbi paskin like Shmuel? Rab always paskin like Rav, and this is not one of the exceptions. So the Gemara answers, Kechumei de Rav ave Ovid. He always paskin like the Chumash of Rav, but he didn't follow the Kulas of Rav. Kula de Rav lo ave Ovid, and this is a Kula of Rav, where you're allowed to make Kiddush even Shelo b'Makom Suda. To have to make Kiddush b'Makom Suda is a Chumrah. So he didn't paskin like that Kula of Rav. Rav Yochanan Amar Af Yedei Yayin Ami Yatsu. Rav Yochanan says that if you were in shul and you were Yotze, even the Yayin that the guy made Kiddush on in shul, and you don't have to repeat it and do it again at home. Vaz Rav Yochanan Tamei, the Amar Rav Chanin Bar Abayim Rav Ptas Rav Yochanan, Echad shinu yayin, echad shinu makom, ein tzarich levarch. Let's say you have a certain vintage wine, you make a bracha on it, and then they bring you another vintage. You have to make another bracha on a vintage, or even if you change place from, let's say, in the same house you went from the floor to the attic, but you're still drinking wine, you don't have to make another bracha. So meisvei shinu makom tzarich levarch. If you change places, you have to make a new bracha. So if you're in shul and you go home, you change places, you clearly have to make a new bracha. Shinu yain ein tzarich levarch. If you change the vintage, you don't. But clearly, tiyufta Rav Yochanan tiyufta. Clearly, Rav Yochanan shita is negated. Yosef Ravidi Baravin Kamed Rav Chizda. Ravidi was saying for Rav Chizda. The Yosef Rav Chizda Kamer Mishmei Ravuna. Rav Chizda was saying over a din of Ravuna that Hada Amit Shinu Malkam Tzarich Levarech, that if you were in one house and you went to another house, you have to make another bracha. Lo yishon mi bayis lebayis. That's from one house to another. Avli Malkam lemalkam in the same house. Lo. Omer leRavidi Baravin Hachi Tanina Le b'Maslisas Rav Hinik, and that's how we learn the B'rais of Rav Hinik. Amri Le. Some people say b'Maslisas Rav Hinik kavosech. So what is Rav Huna telling me? Masnisa Kamash B'lan? He wants to tell us what a B'rais is? No, Rav Huna Masnisa Lo Shmiel. He didn't know that B'rais. He didn't know that B'rais. He was Machadish his own halacha. The Su, Yosef Rav Chizah V'komish made a nafshe. Rav Chizah said the following on his own. Hadam et Shiri Malkam Tzarich Levarech. That which we said you have to make a new bracha if you went from one house to another. Lo Yamorn Ela B'dvorim She'ein Tu'un Bracha Lachrein B'mkoiman. That's only for something that you don't have a bracha achroina afterwards. So then you go to a new house, you make a new bracha. For example, the din is you have to bench where you ate. So anything that requires a bracha afterwards, if you're gonna have to go back to your original place. So and your mind was on that. So when you go to a different house, you don't have to make another bracha. My time, because he's going to go back to his original praise, and he has mind to do that. However, no, even for whether it needs a bracha afterwards or not, you still have to make a new bracha when you come to a new house. I'll ask you a kasha. You have a drinking party, and they sat down to drink. They move their feet to go out and welcome a chassan kala that's joining them. Right, when they leave that original house, they don't have to make a bracha achrona, that which they ate, because they're coming back. When they come back, they don't have to make another, for example, birchas hayayin, because their mind was to come back. However, the Gemara qualifies. That's if they left somebody at the table, a zaken or a chola, who couldn't, walk to greet the chassan kala. But if they didn't leave somebody there, before they go out, they have to make a bracha achroina. They have to start again. From the fact that we said, now they're moving, they picked up their feet to move and greet somebody. We're talking about something there that they ate that would have required a bracha achroina afterwards. The time, now the only reason you don't have to make a new bracha, we said you don't have to make the bracha achroina. But if you had not left a zaken achroina, This is exactly a kasha on Rav Chisda, who said that if it's you don't have to make a new bracha if you're going to end up coming back to the original place because it's something that needs a bracha achrona in the same place. How do we fan for the kasha of Rav Chisda? Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Mantana Akiris Rabbi Yehuda. It's a different story who deals with this thing of Oiker Ragla. This will pick up tomorrow, B'Etz Hashem.
Okay, just to let you know, Bernie's okay. He's coming back. So please
What do you
God.
mean?